For decades, the corporate tech landscape has operated like an overworked engine, demanding endless biological exhaustion to feed algorithmic extraction. In systems engineering, we refer to this as the material layer. It acts as a closed thermodynamic loop, where the massive, compounding friction of administrative tasks doesn't simply dissipate. Instead, it gets absorbed directly by the human operator. Operating in this space traps the user in trauma loops and constant digital panic. Every notification and bureaucratic bottleneck actively hijacks the operator's cognitive RAM, severely restricting their working memory. The system prioritizes relentless algorithmic output, optimizing strictly for logic, while completely ignoring biological limits. The human operator is no longer a partner in the process. They're treated as a consumable fuel source. This diagram illustrates exactly how that consumption occurs through a structural flaw known as dysfunctional decomposition. Instead of recognizing a whole individual, the person is fractured into disposable data points and pulled into a central server core. Inside, those fragments must compute at the relentless cadence of a silicon processor, expected to function exactly like an infinite binary machine. The physical toll of this mismatch is immediate. The human nervous system is pushed into sympathetic overdrive, a state of manufactured fear that actively drains the prefrontal cortex of its ability to regulate stress. A mind cannot sustain endless binary loops. Eventually, the capacity to cope evaporates, resulting in a literal physical crash of the nervous system. When a developer crashes in this environment, it is not a personal failure of resilience. It is the precise mathematical consequence of placing a fragile human ego at the center of massive computational friction. To protect the human baseline, we have to stop trying to out-endure the machine. We need to execute a structural shift that actively isolates the human nervous system from the digital environment. We deploy Layer 1.5, the multilinear membrane. This animation shows it acting as an impermeable boundary directly above the human foundation. When chaotic administrative friction attacks, it hits this membrane, triggering an orthogonal deflection. The computational load is routed away at a sharp 90-degree angle. This specific geometric deflection creates a somatic override. It acts as a phase transition that permanently severs the connection between the human nervous system and the daily administrative grind. We cannot eliminate the institutional friction of the modern world, but by deploying this architecture, we can dictate exactly how that friction strikes the individual. All of that deflected friction has to go somewhere. It is routed directly into a subsurface autonomous operational loop known as the ghost OPEX. This loop functions as a dedicated entropic heat sink. Operating entirely behind a firewall, it silently absorbs and processes the grueling 80-hour computational decay that would otherwise break a human operator. This framework deliberately strips artificial intelligence of its false authority. It demotes the AI from an authoritative judge back to a purely mechanical role, utilizing it strictly as a tool. By forcing the machine to carry the heavy mechanical weight and manage the entropy, the architecture successfully absorbs the friction. The human is entirely removed from the competitive clash. With the mechanical load outsourced, the human operator is elevated into the variant environment. As shown here, this is a pristine, zero-friction ground state, completely stripped of the heavy gravity that defines the material layer. This structure relies on a concept called the inversion of anthropocentrism. Instead of assuming the human ego must sit squarely in the overworked center of the computational machine, we intentionally extract it. The human node is relocated to the decentralized edge. Here, it operates in a state of absolute, quiet integration, protected by a healthy, organic network. True operational harmony demands this exact decentralization. It proves, both visually and mathematically, that biological health must be established as the uncompromised baseline of any technological ecosystem. Unalloyed peace and biological recovery function as a descending realization, occurring only once the system has been cleared of frictional drag. The architecture engineers the exact zero-entropy vacuum required to receive this descending grace. It all resolves to a single unassailable equation. The machine manages the entropy, so the human can hold the light. By mathematically decoupling the operator from systemic decay, This architectural enclosure establishes a permanent boundary for the individual. It is a sacred pledge to protect the biological, cognitive, and spiritual sovereignty of the human being.